What's going on, people? This is Hajimoto with a Umarex Gauntlet teardown. In this video, what I'm going to do is go through the teardown of a Umarex Gauntlet, take it all the way down to its barest components, and then put it all back together again. But along the way, you and I are going to talk about its performance, some of the things that I saw that needed to be addressed, how I addressed them, and this may help you be able to take yours apart and know how it's put together, what tools you'll need and so forth, and we'll go through it. But first, let's go ahead and play the hype that is the Umarex Gauntlet. Let's watch what they put out there for everyone to gobble up.
After 45 years of designing air guns, everything we have discovered has led to this. Get ready to reload. The Umarex Gauntlet. From day one, you've asked for an air gun like this. A versatile pre-charged pneumatic air rifle that performs both live in the field and on the target range. A bolt-action machine with a 10-round magazine that's as at home in a competitor's hands as it is in the tools of the hunter. A regulated gun that's engineered to perform shot after consistent shot on just one fill of its tank. A gun that's virtually silent enough for you to pick off prey without disturbing nature. A multi-shot repeating rifle that places pellets one on top of the other. We created this air rifle for folks devoted to the love of consistency and dependability. You get it all for under $300. A new chapter begins. It seems our competition is shaking in their boots. And they should be. We at Umarex are throwing down the gauntlet. The Umarex Gauntlet.
Wow, that says a lot, huh? That's not like making it hard for people to respond. It's making it to the point where they're starting a whole bunch of controversy is what it is. And so let's talk a little bit about the gun. It's an anticipated gun. Everyone wanted to see this thing big time. This is mine. It came in. Everyone's will look the same. This is a 22 caliber. I put a UTG scope on the top here. So this is the rifle before I started to disassemble it. So what you're going to need is a Phillips screwdriver and a set of Allen keys, both in metric and in fractional. You'll need those two. And we're going to go through the teardown of this old boy. And these are all the pre-shots before I took it apart. And I'm going to point to certain areas that you really need to pay attention to. This screw here is going to be one. There's one exactly like it on the other side. This is your degassing port here. And underneath here, there's another screw. So if you take this screw, the bottom screw, and the screw on the other side off, this whole action will come out of the stock. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. So that's just a better shot. Same weapon. This is the adjustable comb. The comb itself cannot be adjusted up and down until you loosen this screw. So any slack that may exist here is what's taken up by this. So if you wanted this to go higher, you've got to loosen this counterclockwise. Then you can tighten it up with this, then retighten the fastener. That's the degassing slot. Make sure that there's no pellet loaded, and make sure the hammer is not drawn back, that it's forward. Pull the trigger, make sure it's, the hammer's not under load. It has been released. Once that's done, go ahead and degass the rifle. I always recommend that you degass a rifle. I know that a lot of the areas when you're working on a rifle, you're nowhere near the pressure chamber, but it's just better to be safe than sorry. And we'll go from there. Here's the front of the Shroud unit, which hides the bottle down inside here. It has a 13 cubic inch bottle that comes with it. It's hidden underneath here. That Shroud does a pretty good job of hiding it. The barrel's fully shrouded. That's the little rubber cap they give you for the Foster. Covers the fill port on the bottle, and that's how you would fill it with pressure. The safeties on the other side, they did mark it clearly, safe and fire, depending on where that is, and you can throw that forward. It takes a little bit of strength in the finger to push it. It's not easy to do by any means. This is the bolt side of the rifle, which we're going to talk a little bit about this action and how it works. In order to take this magazine out, this bolt must be in this rear position in order for you to pull the mag out and to change it. Then you put your new mag in, and when you release it out of here, it puts the lock in place to hold the magazine, and now when you push it the rest of the way forward and drop it, you're loading another pellet. This is the screw that's on the other side that we were talking about, and you can kind of see over here the beginnings of the pressure gauge, which we'll get to in a second. Better close-up view of the other side of the safety. So if your finger was in here, you push that, and it's like spring-loaded. It'll snap it. Once it gets past the 180-degree mark, it'll snap forward. This is the tank itself, which is nothing more than a simple... most paintballers are familiar with these 13 cubic inch tanks, and that's what it is, with a Ninja reg on the top. And it's kind of confusing because the paperwork that you get says the thing's regulated to 1150, but the regulator, when you look in close, it says 1250. So I don't really know. They say that this weapon is supposed to get 60 shots. I'm kind of agreeing with that. It does. It gets 60 plus. What we're going to do in the way I'm going through this video, guys, is it's informal. I don't have anything written down. I'm just shooting from the hip here. We're going to go through it. I'm going to show everything about the weapon. I'm going to tear it down, and then at the end, I'll share with you the results that I got with the weapon and how it performed. And then I'll make another video later after I've tweaked it to show what the results were. So this is the other side of the stock, adjustable comb, the sling, and so forth. Better angle of the other side. Underneath here is where you see that bottom screw I was talking about. It's right there. There's the forward screw, one on each side here, and then this screw, and they come off. It's important to note here, I want to zoom in on this, because do you notice how there's a little keyway here above? You can see the stock comes around, and then there's a hole here. This safety has to be pointing straight down when you take the action out so that it can come through. When you're trying to take the action out, you're going to be fighting with it a little bit, because as you're trying to pull up on it, this part of the lever hits here and won't let it out. So aim this down and the action comes right out. Comes out much easier. That's out of focus, but that's the shroud at the front. Another out of focus picture. Another out of focus picture. And that one's clear so that we get to see that they have like a textured finish to the shroud. Kind of cool, actually. The pressure gauge, I have 1,000 PSI in it before I degassed it. And now we're going to go ahead and get into the actual teardown of this bad boy, which is pretty laborious, not going to lie. There's a lot of pictures to this thing, and we'll go through them step by step. So let me get those pictures up of the teardown here. If you notice, I took the scope off here, and this front shroud piece is off. It's been removed. The weapon at this point is going to be degassed. You notice the magazine is out, and I'm showing this because I've degassed the rifle at this point, taken all the pressure out of it. Again, the shroud's off. You do not want to remove any of this. Now, see, this is what I was telling you. If you remember, they put this thing as saying, and there's printed material that says 1150. But this says that the output pressure is to 1250. So there's a bit of a contradiction as to, what is it? I don't know which one it is. I'll check that out later. But at this point, I have removed the 3 screws. I've taken the bottle off, taken this screw out, the screw on the other side, and this other screw, and now the action comes out. So we're separating the action out of the stock. This would be just the action by itself, and I'm zooming in here to show there's key areas that you need to be aware of. There's a screw here, and this screw goes all the way up through this cap, which holds the spring and everything in for the hammer, and then comes up through this cap, which is behind your bolt. Okay, so this one long Phillips screw comes across through there. That would take the rear screw that's holding the trigger assembly, which is all one piece, holds it on the rear. On the front, it's an Allen screw that when you take out, it's very short. That takes the whole trigger assembly off. So it's a better shot here. Again, that bolt runs up through the bottom, and then that's an Allen head screw. This is just the other side. You can see that the punch holes that they put through the steel, there's a very rough grind. They just took all the rough edges off, very quickly done to get the sharp edges off of it. This is what the shroud looks like on the front when you take off the cap, very Marauder-like. When you take the cap off, the Marauder has a stack of these plastic cones. They made this one solid piece, and internal to this piece, there's a set of crisscrossing baffles inside here. Then there's the spring. And at the front of the barrel, there's a stripper. Looks just like the one on the Crossman. I zoomed in here to show more detail of the configuration, the way it's in the barrel. That air stripper looks almost exactly like the Crossman air stripper. The problem is this thing's all plastic, and I didn't get a good picture of it, but if you look at my pointer and you look right where I'm pushing here, this thing's cracked. Both the left and right side of this thing are cracked. It's just sitting on there. So it didn't do anything to it but take it out of the box, and that plastic's already broken. This is to show what the crown looked like, and I'll be honest, it's not bad. It looks like they got an 11-degree crown here. They came in. The landings and rifling inside looked really good. They were clean on the edge. There wasn't a lot of distortion. And when they did the 11-degree, they came in and did just a little bit of a shoulder drop here, which cleaned up all of those. I give another shot here, and the reason I do it, I'll show you the one thing that I was concerned about in looking at the rifling, is if you notice in the rifling here, when they did the crown, there's the crown. It is pretty rough, but you see these little bumps here where they went in? So during the rifling process, whatever the machine used, it doesn't even align with always landings or always the high points. If you look, on this one, we're in a low spot. On this one, we're in between a low spot and another. This one, we're in between another. So some jigging or whatever was used to do this, or I don't know, maybe an out-of-round tool was chattering, and it put these on there, but they don't align with anything. The rifle shot really, really well, so I'm not going to say that was throwing pellets in a weird direction, because it did work pretty good. Shot really well. Another one, just so you could see in further to see the heights of the rifling, and you can see the machining lines coming across those. So if somebody was interested in lapping the barrel to get that a little smoother, you could probably increase the delivery a little bit better. Okay, now we're on the side of we're going to start taking this thing apart to take the barrel off at this point. So in this shot, there's a grub screw at the top. The shroud has been removed, which I showed you previously. The grub screw here and here are the only two that hold the barrel in. This is held on, which is what your shroud screws into. And every one of these barrels have detents for all of these. So if you were to take this out, you don't have to worry about where it goes. There's a detent for that grub screw. It can only go in one way. And same thing with the barrel ones at the top here. Okay, the other one is there's a countersunk Phillips head screw that sits right here. That screws down, and that's what's holding the breech to the pressure tube. So that one screw that's in the breech and the long screw that comes through the back is what holds these two together. That screw's going to be out, and then that screw's going to be out. Once that's out, we can take these two apart. But that grub screw is removed, and this one's removed. Do yourself a favor whenever you're dealing with these types, take the grub screw all the way out. You're going to do that anyway, so that when you reassemble it, you can look through the holes to make sure that you're aligned with the detents before you tighten it down. The other reason is you don't want to leave those in, because if they stick down and gouge across the O-rings, you're going to be a very unhappy camper. It's a better shot of the two screws that hold the barrel in. And I leave this one on. There's no real need for me to take that off because that's just for the shroud. Underneath, this is that screw that I was saying that goes all the way through the back cap and the upper. This will be the one that we're going to want to take out in order to get these things separated. So in this piece here, you notice I unloosened this screw, but I left it in place just because I don't want everything to come apart yet. The spring and hammer are right here. So there is light tension on this cap. I mean, it's not a huge amount of tension, but there's light tension on this. And this is why earlier in the video I said make sure this isn't cocked because if you have this back under spring load and you take this cap off, it's going to shoot out this way, and you don't want to have that happen. With these two apart, this pin is just sitting in there. This pin goes from our bolt, goes down inside the hammer, and pulls the hammer back so the trigger holds it back until you're ready to fire. That's our transfer port seal there. So we've got our breech up here, and we've got our pressure assembly down here with a trigger removed from each other. They're separated. A little bit closer, but it's out of focus. But I wanted to show that you see this pin goes right into that hole, which is in the top of the hammer. And this is the threaded screw section. The screw comes down through this into that, holding these two together. This screw comes up through the bottom, pulling the back down. So those are the two screws that hold the breech and the pressure tube together. A better view of down inside the breech, showing the pin. And again, it's just sitting in there. You literally can just take it out with your hands. It's not installed down. Now I took the pin, put it into the hammer to show how it follows this guide as you draw it back. That pulls it back, engaging the hammer into the trigger right there. You can see the sear just on the bottom, on the top of that picture there. There's our transfer port. Another shot showing now the bolt I pulled out completely. This is the back cap. Then there's a spacer. Then there's the hammer guide, the hammer spring, and then inside there's your hammer. And there's that pin that goes down into the hammer. I want to take a second to talk about this assembly here. So the limitation of this rifle for adjustability is you can't adjust any of this. The hammer spring cannot be adjusted. This spring is one length. This assembly can't be adjusted so that you can tighten this spring to put more pressure on this hammer. There's no adjustability. What there is this spacer. And my thinking is that if a 177 caliber owner were to open their rifle up, I'm willing to bet that this spacer is shorter for them, putting less preload on the spring, because they don't need as much pressure. So I don't own a 177, so I can't speak to that, but you can see the size of mine. This hammer needs to be polished up a bit. It has a lot of machining lines on it. It's pretty rough. And the pressure tube itself, when it slides back and forth, would be pretty rough. On the front side, this is the pressure side of the tube. This is the hammer side. This is the pressure side. There's 4 screws with lock washers on them, and you take those 4 screws out, and you take the nose piece out, which is what your tank screws to, and there's 2 O-rings here that you have to be careful of, that when you take that out, you don't want to destroy those because your pressure tube will leak like crazy. This is our transfer port from the valve. So that brass you see is your valve that's inside. That's looking down inside the tube, and you can see there's a spacer down there that the valve is between the hammer and the valve. And they did that so that the valve just peeks through that washer. And I'll be taking that out in a second to show it to you. This is with the barrel taken out of the breeching, and this is our pressure tube, and there's our breeching. The barrel has 3 O-rings on it, and when I took mine apart, it did not like to come out. It was really tough coming out of this section here, out of the front of this breech. It was very sharp-edged, and it scalped the O-rings pretty badly. Transfer port in the tube out of the valve is 4.6 millimeters in diameter. That's 4.6, the valve itself. You can see my measuring device there. Then I take a measurement of the breech size, which is 4.1. And then we're going to show you the barrel, which is only 3.4. So before the air even gets to behind the pellet, it's reduced in size substantially to get that air behind it. So this is a close-up, and if you notice, you can see the O-rings are scalped. Now the grub screws are completely removed, and carefully drew the barrel out in a fashion where it wasn't cocked or kinked or binding. It was very, very smoothly, and I was rotating the barrel, taking it out to try to get it to release, and you can see it still did a pretty bad job. It gouged those big time. So these 3 needed to be replaced. This is the bottom of the breeching where the transfer port comes out. This is an all aluminum breech, and you can see right there that's the size that's on the bottom. So I end up increasing the size of that. That's our hammer. This does a better job. You can see the hammer's obviously turned. It's a very rough turn. There's no polish to this at all. It is hardened steel, but there's no polish to it at all. So if you take that ridged piece of steel and slide it down a metal tube, it's going to be pretty rough. It's not going to have the glide that it should have. And here's your tube itself that hammer is going to slide down in from. Now these photos are out of sequence because this is before I did anything to it. And you can see the ridges in here. And these photos are after I polished it. And there's a big difference in the way this thing slid back together when I was done. Okay? So continuing on here, after doing all of the ports, opened the ports, chamfered the pieces, buffed the tube, polished the hammer, all of those pieces done, I reassembled everything back together, put everything back in the same order in which I took it apart. This screw here never needs to really be taken out unless you're trying to take the valve out. And because I wasn't taking the valve out, that fastener never should have gotten removed. I did put it back in and torqued it back down. Up here, you notice what I did is I took the shroud off and I made a small mark here. And that's because on my Marauder and other rifles that have the shroud, you put a vent hole here so it forces the air to go out to the front. The air stripper forces the air to come back down and it comes out here. And that quiets the gun a lot, and it allows the pressure to slowly be released, even reducing the gun's noise signature even more. I made the hole that goes underneath, and then when it's assembled, you see the hole that's right there. Now it's back together again. I want to take a second to point out this photo because this is important. The gun's all back together. I want you to pay attention to this right here. Look at this configuration, okay? If you notice down here, the lines in the plastic, follow this line, perfect. Follow this line, perfect. Follow right here. This curves down, and you can see a step here. Well, you can clearly see right here, this shroud is pushing against the barrel shroud. This plastic is pushing against the barrel shroud. So when I first had this weapon, I did a series of shots with it. And those series of shots I didn't realize were being affected by this because what I use when I shoot is I shoot with a dead shot rig, which is this guy here, okay? And what happens is it'll support underneath here and here as I'm shooting it. So what's happening is the plastic is pushing up here, which is pushing against the barrel, which is pushing the barrel up. So when I'm looking down range, my shots were all too high. So I'm adjusting the scope constantly, and I'm wondering why the point of impact continually keeps changing, and I'm for the life of me can't figure out why. And I look at the bottom of the piece here, and it's pushing right on the shroud as I showed you in this shot. It's pushing on the bottom of this shroud, and that's the answer. The answer is they didn't do a good job in fitting the plastic to the bottom. On the bottom here, it's just not a good job. It's not a nice fit and finish. I think they could have spent a little bit more time in getting that to be a better fit. It's unfortunate, but I'll manage this. I'll modify this somehow so it's not pressing on it. I'm going to share. Lastly, I'm going to share the group. I got some group photos that I'm going to show, which were some shots that I had taken with this gun. And I'm going to share those with you. And then I will be doing an update video later that's going to show how it improved, if at all, after all my tweaks. Now, this is before the gun was taken apart. This is a 20-shot group. And in here, you're going to notice an elevation change that keeps happening. From the center here, drifting left and right is fairly minimal. If there's any change, it's going to be the up and down. And that's because based on how much pressure I put down on the weapon, the shroud's pushing the barrel up, and this is why my elevation kept changing. So this is the 20-shot group. Here's the string that was on that. The average on the weapon that I have, there's a lot of folks that have said that they've gotten 800s and so forth. This was one group. that I had. Then I did a second group to make sure that it stayed consistent. So 780s is about where my weapon is. The groups stayed fairly consistent. If you look at the overall shots here, they were high and to the right, which if you look at the way the plastic's pushing on the barrel, it's pushing it up to the left. So it makes sense that that's why mine was shooting a little goofy. So that being said, guys, that's my teardown video of the Umarex Gauntlet. I appreciate you guys coming by and watching the video. If you've got any questions, by all means, put them down below. I'll try to expand on what I've done here. And hopefully this video helps you if you're going to tear yours apart to getting things done. Thanks again, guys. Take care.